protect Ontario. Your Honor.
Paving the way to the polls.
Tonight, the Premier officially triggers a snap election more than a year ahead of schedule. Good evening. The leaders are at the starting gate. Let the race to the ballot box begin.
The stage is set for 28 days of political priorities, promises, and pledges. February 27th is Election Day in Ontario. The Lieutenant Governor agreeing to dissolve the legislature this afternoon. The campaign officially gets underway tomorrow. And CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us with the details. Here we go, Siobhan.
It's going to be busy. The campaign buses ready to roll, the lawn signs ready to be put into snow, I guess. Tomorrow we'll see Doug Ford launch his re-election bid along the Detroit River to really emphasize for him what this election's all about.
See you all in Windsor. I'm going to protect Ontario.
Doug Ford gets his campaign slogan in on his way to visit the Lieutenant Governor, triggering an election more than a year ahead of schedule. For the Progressive Conservative leader, it's all about the threat coming across the border.
I can't stress enough how devastating these tariffs will be.
With as many as 500,000 Ontario jobs on the line.
This is going to be a battle for the next 4 years, and I want to make sure that I have a strong mandate to outlast President Trump.
Ford has talked about needing that mandate to make tough decisions and unleash tens of billions of dollars in stimulus, a blueprint that's already been discussed by Cabinet.
Which will be rolling out over the period of the next 28 days, but it's all about protecting the people of Ontario in every aspect.
But opposition leaders say Ford has only added to the chaos and uncertainty Ontarians feel.
Plunging us into an early and unnecessary election.
I can't believe he's abandoning workers and companies at this critical moment in order to save his own job.
Doug Ford is calling this snap election because he's thinking that nobody's going to be paying attention in the middle of winter. I feel like people are suffering out there.
Opposition leaders hope to shift the campaign conversation to what they see as shortcomings and failures of the PC government.
Doug Ford said he'd end hallway medicine. He didn't get it done. He said he'd cut taxes. He didn't get it done. He said he'd build housing. He didn't get it done.
Ford will have to convince voters a time of instability is the right time to go to the ballot box.
If the first 5-6 days you see Doug Ford stumbling and struggling to answer that question, he can't get off that topic, then maybe the opposition can get some momentum.
But it would be a huge gap to close with the PCs polling way out in front.
At this moment, only Progressive Conservatives have a full slate of 124 candidates. The Liberals have about 100, the NDP 80, so these first few days of the campaign will be a scramble. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Natalie, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Siobhan. And still to come on CTV News, with just days to go before Donald Trump's tariffs are set to take effect, Ottawa is bracing for a trade war. The details of the federal plan to step up support with stimulus just ahead.
But first, honoring the memory of a victim of gun violence. A
man shot and killed 3 years ago. Still no arrests in his murder. And tonight there are renewed calls for justice as a vigil is held to remember him. CTV's Mike Walker is live on Avenue Road near Eglinton with the story. Mike.
Well, Natalie, family and friends will soon hold a vigil near where E.K. Kaja was shot and killed 3 years ago. They want to keep his legacy alive, and they want to ensure his murder is not forgotten. Kaja, who was a financial analyst and a father of a young boy, was shot outside his home near Avenue in Eglinton back on January 23rd, 2022. He died in hospital days later. 3 years later, and police have yet to release any suspect descriptions. Frustrating for his family and friends who have been struggling to understand why he was murdered. Now, as part of tonight's vigil, they are also celebrating Kaja's life, and that includes spreading awareness about a scholarship at U of T in his honor where Kaja completed his MBA. So far, it has raised $70,000. I spoke with Kaja's sister a short time ago, who traveled from the U.S. to be here for tonight's vigil.
We're still lost and devastated, and still don't know why, and still don't understand why we don't have any answers, to be honest.
I think it's vital that we get some form of closure and sort of keep his legacy alive and just remember the event that happened 3 years ago. Beyond closure, I think justice is something else we would like to be seen. And so for that reason, we are here today.
Now, investigators with Toronto Police are also attending tonight's vigil. They tell us that they don't have any updates on homicide, but say it is still ongoing. Reporting on Mike Walker, Natalie, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Meantime, police have identified the victim in the city's latest homicide, a man who was found with severe injuries near Bloor and Madison on Sunday and did not survive. He has now been identified as 27-year-old Derafikte Daryl Savan. Investigators are trying to identify 3 suspects believed to be involved in his death and are encouraging them to turn themselves in.
Still ahead, a beloved dog out for a walk on a leash downtown, snatched by a coyote. You'll hear from the pup's devastated owner amid fears it could happen again.
More news in a moment, but first, let's take a live look outside on this Tuesday evening. Seeing some flurries out there right now. A winter weather travel advisory is in effect. Our Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay, how much snow are we talking about tonight?
Well, Natalie, we could pretty easily pick up about 5 centimeters of snow this evening in the city of Toronto. Some areas will see a little more than that. This is a clipper system moving through, generally fast moving. It's right on time here, bringing us the snow for the evening commute. There's the winter weather travel advisory that's in place. There's also a snow squall watch in effect for areas to the northwest. That's more so for tomorrow, and we'll talk about that coming up. Winds are coming out of the south. As a result, temperatures are starting to warm up across the southwest. Not so much for us right now in Toronto. It is -6 degrees, but we're looking to climb to about 2 overnight. There's your traveler's forecast. Maybe stay off the roads if you don't have to be on them tonight. We'll take you through a full look at the forecast coming up. For now, though, Michelle, I'll send it over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. There are heightened concerns tonight after a little chihuahua named Chico was suddenly snatched by a coyote.
The beloved pet was out for a walk downtown on a leash when it was killed by the aggressive animal. CTV's John Musselman reports.
She is too upset to show her face on camera, but this dog owner is devastated after her little dog was attacked and killed by a coyote.
Right on the corner, he just popped out and grabbed Chico. And on leash, I had 2 leashes. He grabbed Chico and just took off. And I fell. I scraped both of my knees trying to hold on to him. And he just grabbed him and just ran up.
It happened on Friday night around 10:30 near Canoe Landing Park. That's a high-density condo area near Lakeshore and Bathurst. The woman, whose name is Jessica, was walking her 4-year-old Chihuahua named Chico and her smaller puppy named Pedro. The coyote snatched Chico, pulling the leash right out of her hand. She ran after her dog, but there was nothing she could do.
I've been crying on and off, and I don't understand. I just don't believe it.
A day later, they found Chico's sweater. His remains were located on Sunday near Fort York. This is just the latest attack by an aggressive coyote in this area. Last fall, a coyote went after a dog on a leash on the front porch of a home in Liberty Village. The city says it has provided coyote information sessions in the community, and it encourages residents to report any aggressive behavior. Dog owners are reminded to keep their dogs on a leash at all times and be aware of your surroundings.
I mean, it's scary. You know, you got to be extra careful and vigilant right now. So, especially with small dogs.
The city offers this advice. If residents encounter a coyote while walking dogs, they are advised to pick the dog up or keep the dog on a short leash and move to an area with more activity. It's important that residents maintain eye contact while moving away from the coyote and, if possible, make noise and be big and assertive. Coyotes are naturally timid and flee when confronted assertively. Back near the park, Jessica says she hasn't taken her smaller dog out at night, and she's staying close to her condo as a precaution. The city is in the process of reviewing its coyote strategy, and staff will report back to council later this year. John Musselman, CTV News.
York Regional Police are looking for witnesses in an armed home invasion in Richmond Hill. Investigators say it happened around 10 last night near King Street and Parker Avenue. 3 masked suspects burst into the home and forced the occupants onto the floor at gunpoint while they stole items. There were 2 adults in the home at the time. No one was injured. The suspects left through the front door and fled in a dark-colored SUV.
And Halton police are looking for suspects in a smash-and-grab jewelry store robbery at the Burlington Mall. It happened around this time yesterday. Police say 3 suspects entered the store, forced the employee into the back, and smashed display cases with a hammer, stealing the jewelry inside. Witnesses say they took off in a blue Honda CR-V, which police say was also stolen. We turn now to the latest effort to transform an underdeveloped piece of Toronto's waterfront.
A nearly $1 billion pledge from all 3 levels of government to speed up the plan. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live from Cherry and Polson Streets with the details. Beth.
Michelle, there are big dreams for this very big space. Now living, working and playing along Toronto's eastern waterfront is getting closer to reality. A quarter century in the making, new communities along Toronto's eastern waterfront are set to rise up. It's thanks to all 3 levels of government coming together with close to $1 billion investment.
This tripartite agreement means that we're building a city within a city. Is this big? Yes, it is.
In addition to more development in Quayside, Ukwemin-Minising Island, formerly Villiers Island, is expected to see more than 14,000 new mid- and high-rise homes. It's not the first time the feds, the province, and the city have partnered to reimagine this underutilized land next to Lake Ontario. Jean Chrétien, Mike Harris, and Mel Lastman first announced $1.5 billion in 2001 to start the revitalization. In 2017, $1.3 billion was poured in to flood protect the area. Now, another $975 million is being injected to develop the island and community. A lot of public money Torontonians are looking forward to seeing take shape.
I'm hoping to see that area cleaned up. I think it's a big mess right now. I'm hoping that they can figure out the traffic congestion.
I'd hope to see all the necessary infrastructure to support those communities, like schools and grocery stores.
I believe it's important to have affordable housing. It's very expensive in Toronto and it's getting worse.
In Quayside, 24% of the new homes will be affordable and city-owned. In Ukwemin-Minising, 30% will be affordable. While the latest funding doesn't include transit, Waterfront Toronto says 60% of the design work for an LRT planned to stop through here is complete. It says the island will also have an $81 million park system expected to open next summer, along with office and commercial spaces and all the components of a neighborhood. The new money enabling all the public infrastructure from sewers to sanitation and streets so developers can get to work.
We're really excited today. It's an announcement that the entire country should be excited about. It creates the opportunity to build on our success.
The first occupants are expected to move in by 2031. And construction is expected to start next year. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Natalie, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Meanwhile, the bike lanes along Bloor West, Yonge Street and University are one step closer to being ripped out as part of a provincial plan. The Ford government has now retained an engineering firm to redesign the sections of those streets where the lanes will be removed to make more space for cars. The PCs allege those bike lanes are underused and contribute to congestion.
Well, this is not what Canadians want to hear. The White House said today a plan to impose tariffs on our exports to the U.S. remains on track for Saturday.
But CTV News has learned the federal government is preparing a stimulus package to help affected Canadians and businesses. CTV senior political correspondent Mike Couture reports.
The amount of relief will depend on how big those tariffs are. Sources tell us no specific programs have been designed, but they could reach pandemic levels if President Trump follows through on his threat to impose 25% tariffs on all Canadian imports into the U.S.
It'll bring the industry to its knees.
A blunt assessment of the impact of U.S. tariffs from the head of a manufacturing company connected to the automotive sector. With deeply integrated supply chains, federal ministers continue to warn Americans will bear the brunt of the pain.
There cannot be tariffs without consequences. There cannot be tariffs without impact. And there cannot be tariffs with a higher cost for U.S. consumers.
If those warnings don't work, the federal government is preparing counter tariffs plus a stimulus package to help businesses and Canadians. Sources tell CTV News that plan does not need to launch as soon as tariffs are levied on Canadian products. Instead, it will address the economic impacts as they become apparent.
It's no different than the pandemic. It's not about one level of government. It's about all three levels of government working collaboratively.
Ford says the public and private sectors must work together to invest in infrastructure in the face of this threat.
We're going to see an unprecedented attack to our families, to our businesses, to our communities.
In an interview on Bloomberg's Big Take podcast, former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister and current Liberal leadership contender Chrystia Freeland said Canada needs to publish a list of American products that we could slap with counter tariffs to get President Trump's attention.
I believe that he doesn't care that much if Canadian politicians are jumping around, banging our fists on the table, etc., but he cares about Americans.
Economists say the key for any type of stimulus package is to make it targeted and time-sensitive, to prevent it from becoming inflationary spending or to have it contribute to the deficit. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
The commissioner of the inquiry into foreign interference says there was problematic conduct, but Justice Marie-Josée Hogue says she found no evidence of any traitors in Parliament. CTV's Judy Trin has the details.
Our democratic institutions have remained robust.
In her final report, Justice Marie-Josée Hogue said there was no list of parliamentarians colluding with foreign states, contradicting an earlier national security report which revealed witting and semi-witting individuals.
Nor have I seen any evidence to suggest that there are currently so-called traitors in Parliament. While I saw evidence of some concerning behavior, the evidence does not show any MPs plotting with foreign states against Canada's interests.
But there were politicians who had problematic relationships with diplomats and officials who didn't sound the alarm sooner.
That's the overall theme of the report, that up until recently, everybody involved has grossly underestimated this problem and not done enough with information passing along and dealing with it.
Hogue's report puts forward 51 recommendations.
Improving the ability of parliamentarians to understand the threat. And she's talking about, let's create a guide for them, let's make sure they have proper training, let's make sure they get the intelligence that they need to have, let's make sure their staffs are properly trained.
After investigating the 2019 Liberal nomination race in Don Valley North, where international students were bussed in to cast ballots, the commissioner recommended that parties limit voting to citizens and permanent residents in nomination races. The Liberals are doing this in their leadership contest, and the NDP says it will follow.
I've instructed my party, my national director and team to follow all of the recommendations as it relates to political parties.
The commissioner says she would like to see 24 of 51 recommendations implemented before the next election. That's unlikely, given the fact that all the opposition parties have said that they will vote no confidence on government bills when Parliament resumes at the end of March. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Canada has signed a nuclear energy cooperation deal with Poland.
This agreement is a win-win. It'll support good middle-class jobs in Canada, and it'll mean better access to nuclear energy for Poland, ensuring that you never again have to turn to Russian oil and gas, all while growing your economy with a clean source of power that will help you shift away from coal.
The Prime Minister made it official as he concluded his visit to the European nation today. The deal will allow Canadian companies to support Polish efforts to generate nuclear power. Poland expects to begin construction of its first nuclear plant next year. It will be built by Canadian-owned Westinghouse Electric.
Atomic scientists have moved the so-called doomsday clock closer to midnight than ever before. It now shows 89 seconds from the theoretical point of annihilation. The scientists say factors include Russian nuclear threats amid its invasion of Ukraine, tensions in other areas of instability, military applications of artificial intelligence, and climate change. The clock is now 1 second closer than last year.
Google is preparing to make changes to its maps after Donald Trump announced he is renaming the Gulf of Mexico. The tech giant says the change will be made when the name has been officially updated by government officials. American users will see it as the Gulf of America. Mexican users will still see the Gulf of Mexico. All other countries will see both names. Trump is also changing the name of America's highest mountain peak back to Mount McKinley, and that will be reflected on Google Maps as well.
A kilometers-long cluster of dolphins has been spotted off the central coast of California. This so-called super pod of more than 1,500 of the marine animals was seen swimming across Carmel Bay. It's believed the large mix of adult and young dolphins was the result of several pods coming together and swimming south. It has happened before, but is not a common occurrence. The team initially didn't grasp the sheer size of the super pod, thinking there were only several hundred. This type of dolphin typically travels in groups of only 10 to 30.
Coming up on CTV News, health officials sound the alarm as another case of measles pops up in southern Ontario. The details on where and what to watch for still ahead.
Taking a walk on the wild side, and immersive experiences uses technology and art and brings them together to teach us how to live a little more sustainably. That story coming up.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, the Canadian healthcare system is under pressure and some patients are going to the U.S. for surgeries. One man who paid $600,000 for a major operation feels the government should help pay his hospital bill. I'll have that story. That's just ahead.
Well, yesterday was a very windy day here in southern Ontario. Peak gusts upwards of 100 kilometers per hour along the Lake Erie shoreline and into Niagara. We've got southerly winds right now. They're going to switch to northwesterly for tomorrow, so the temperature seesaw continues. A full look at your 7-day forecast is coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
Depending on the kind of health care you need, there can be waiting lists in Ontario for specialists and surgeries.
Some patients are choosing to head south of the border for quicker access to some health care, but there is no guarantee any of those costs will be covered. Here's Pat Foran in Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Natalie and Michelle. A man says he was operated on in Ontario 9 different times and his health care problem was not resolved. He says he felt he had no choice but to go to the U.S. for an operation. It cost $600,000 and he feels OHIP should pay for it.
I had the 3 months of life left. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't be able to talk to you today.
DePietro Gregorio of Maple is 78 years old and has a history of Crohn's disease. In 2019, he had a bowel obstruction and emergency surgery to deal with it. After the operation, he says he was told the surgery wasn't necessary.
Then when they finished, they said, we didn't really have to do this. Ooh.
Gregorio says he was left with a colostomy bag but was told it could be reversed. He says what followed over the next 4 years were 8 more operations to correct the procedure, but in the end, issues remained. He ended up with 2 bags and was in severe pain. He was told nothing more could be done.
It was really bad. I was looking for a way to end my life.
With nowhere to turn in Ontario, he traveled to Ohio to the Cleveland Clinic. There, he was told an operation could improve his life, but the cost would be $600,000. After the 11-hour operation, he says he finally felt relief.
They couldn't do a better job.
And do you have a colostomy bag now?
No, nothing.
Gregorio says he's not impressed with Ontario's healthcare system. When a U.S. doctor fixed in 1 operation, what Ontario doctors couldn't in 9 surgeries.
Why it took us 9 attempts to fix the same problem that they fixed it with 1.
Gregorio says he's paid healthcare taxes all his life and believes Ontario's Ministry of Health should cover his $600,000 hospital bill. But he was told, it has been determined the medical treatment you received out of country does not meet the criteria to be considered an emergency. As a result, payment for health services has been denied. Gregorio feels he had no choice but to go to the U.S. and believes at least a portion of the bill should be paid.
It's not fair to say we can't touch you anymore, we can't pay you anything. That's definitely not fair.
And if an Ontario doctor recommends out-of-country care, you may be able to have U.S. hospital bills covered, but you must have written approval from the Ministry of Health in advance before receiving the services. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, we turn our attention to the weather forecast, and there are flurries flying, enough so that you have to be careful if you're heading out on the roads tonight.
Yeah, we saw Beth and Mike both standing out there in a lot of snow, and there is more ahead tonight.
There is. This is really just the beginning, this system pushing in. There's not a lot of moisture with it, so these are really dry flakes that are falling and landing on the ground, likely to accumulate as we make our way through these evening hours. But we've also got some strong winds, so that's reducing visibility. Overall, it's a bit of a tricky travel night for anyone who has to do commuting. Here's a look at what's been happening on some of the major routes. Of course, Salters are out, including on the Gardner Expressway, as you can see here. Take it slow if you do have to venture out this evening, or perhaps if your travel is non-essential, you can just stay cozy at home. Here's a look at the winter weather travel advisory that Environment Canada issued this afternoon for the City of Toronto. Around the Golden Horseshoe, 5 to 10 centimeters of snow is expected. Heavier amounts from Peterborough over toward Kingston. And then this snow squall watch that you see here in the brighter yellow, that's more so for tomorrow, thanks to some squalls that could develop behind this system. It's an Alberta clipper. These are generally fast movers. They usually bring roughly 5 centimeters of snow as they go, and that is what we're expecting here locally. Some areas will see a little less, some a little more. And then if we do get squalls into tomorrow, perhaps an additional couple of centimeters in some areas. There's midnight tonight, so we are expecting the bulk of this to move on out. Early tomorrow morning, we might get another little frontal squall early on, so that's about 6 a.m. Burst of flurries going to be possible, although temperatures are also going to be rising, and we'll talk about that next. There's the change in wind direction, so we go from southerly and southwesterly winds tonight back to northwesterly winds for about this time tomorrow. That is going to send the temperature plummeting once again. And yes, lake effect streamers are going to be a possibility in many areas along the 401 corridor and certainly through the snowbelt regions. Here's our current winds, again coming out of the south, not overly strong, nothing compared to what we experienced yesterday, but again going to strengthen as the night goes on. It's already 2 degrees in Windsor. It's quite cold still in northern parts of Ontario. We too in Toronto are forecasting that we will climb to about 2 degrees overnight tonight, and by the time we are waking up tomorrow morning. Around 10 a.m., temperature around 0. That could result in maybe a couple of rain showers in some areas, but then in the afternoon, the temperature falls once again. We'll be at about -3 degrees by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then for an afternoon temperature, some communities are going to be at about -6. So again, we start off the day at about 2 degrees on the plus side. The temperature falls as the day goes on. Then we're mild again for both Thursday and Friday. Look at Friday, might make it to a high of 4 degrees, but then the temperature drops again and it's going to be a chilly start to your weekend. Lots of sun for Saturday, but a high of -6, mild with potential for some mixed precipitation on Sunday. That's your look at the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Also, tonight you've heard of Stranger Things, but what about Stranger Sings? Our Andrea Case gives us a behind-the-scenes look at the parody musical hitting the stage in Toronto.
There are mounting concerns tonight over measles in southern Ontario.
It comes as officials with Grand Erie Public Health investigate the latest case, the 10th in the area in recent weeks. As CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan says, several suspected cases have also come forward.
The latest case of the highly infectious disease is a child from Haldimand, Norfolk. Officials say they are recovering at home.
We have one person. We have the cases that we have. 7 suspect cases have not been tested, so we can only call them suspect cases at this point because the confirmatory testing hasn't been done. We have 2 school exposures. As I say, one school was a grade 8 student, and there are 3 classes involved with that. We have a family that with a 2-year-old that I believe attended the hospital, local hospital, and is a probable case, and also another sibling of that child was involved as well. We have another family that's exposed to the previous exposures I mentioned, the twins.
They warn others may have been exposed to the measles at the following locations: Bethel Baptist School on Highway 3 East in Simcoe on January 20th or 21st between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. or at the Grey Gretzky Medical Center on Grey Street in Brantford on January 22nd between 10:45 a.m. and 2:45 p.m. Grand Erie Public Health, which is the new name for the recently merged Brant County and Haldimand Norfolk Health Units, has seen a total of 10 cases of measles recently. 4 are in children, 6 are in adults. And Southwest Public Health, which covers Oxford County, Elgin, and St. Thomas, has also had 1 active case. Grand Erie health officials say anyone who may have been exposed should check their immunizations, especially those with weakened immune systems, babies, and pregnant individuals. Symptoms of measles include red rash, fever, cough, runny nose, red eyes, and fatigue. They can start anywhere from 7 to 21 days after exposure, and a person is contagious 4 days before to 4 days after the rash appears. Contact your health provider if you experience symptoms. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Healthcare workers rallied outside Queen's Park today. They say they hope the upcoming provincial election will lead to improved care for patients. Members of the Ontario Council of Hospital Unions, along with CUPE, set up 4 gurneys outside. The groups say under the current government, Ontario hospitals receive less funding compared to hospitals in every other province. The unions say the gaps in healthcare are widespread, from millions of people without a family doctor to emergency room closures, and the result is people losing their lives.
This government needs to invest in healthcare. It needs to invest to keep up with an aging and growing population. And if it doesn't do that, this healthcare system, whether it's home care, long-term care, community care in terms of family physicians or acute care, is going to continue to deteriorate. And that plays out as individual tragedies for people as they try to get their mother, their father, their spouse, their loved one taken care of in a system that simply hasn't enough capacity.
The hospital gurneys are going to be transported to 30 communities and towns across the province in the lead up to the provincial election, including Sudbury, Minden, and Walkerton, all areas where the unions say healthcare is being neglected.
A trial date has been set for Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni to try to resolve their differences following the making of the movie It Ends With Us. Lively sued her co-star in New York in December for harassment and attacks on her reputation. Baldoni sued this month, accusing Lively of defamation and extortion. A New York judge said yesterday he will likely combine the lawsuits for trial. He has told both sides to prepare for March 9th.
Here at home, some of the stars set to appear at the inaugural Departure Festival Plus conference have been announced. Bryan Adams will take part in the showcase for music, art, comedy, and tech. Maddie Matheson and Mustafa are also scheduled to appear. The conference runs May 6th to the 11th in Toronto and is described as a reimagined and expanded vision of Canadian Music Week. It was sold to new owners last year. After the break, the lagging loonie is rerouting travel plans. Popular winter destinations suddenly more expensive. What Canadians are opting to do due to our deflated dollar.
This is going to be a battle for the next 4 years, and I want to make sure that I have a strong mandate to outlast President Trump.
Updating our top stories, the Ontario election campaign officially starts tomorrow after the Lieutenant Governor agreed to dissolve the legislature this afternoon. Voters go to the polls February 27th, but opposition leaders say the election will add more chaos and uncertainty for Ontarians.
You got to be extra careful and vigilant right now, so especially with small dogs.
A Chihuahua was attacked and killed by a coyote on Friday near Lakeshore and Bathurst. It was the latest attack by one of the animals in the area. Anyone who encounters a coyote is urged to pick up your dog and move to a busier area. It is also advised to walk the dog in daylight hours if possible.
We're really excited today. It's an announcement that the entire country should be excited about.
The federal, provincial, and municipal governments will spend $975 million to speed up revitalization of Toronto's waterfront. Officials say the money will help create more than 14,000 new homes and an estimated 100,000 skilled trades jobs. Construction is expected to begin in 2026 with the goal of first occupancy by the year 2031.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
The Canadian dollar may be poised to slide as U.S. tariffs loom. Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg has those details in business.
Hello there. Currency strategists at banks are sounding the alarm that the loonie is at risk of tumbling toward the weakest levels in decades. The dollar traded around 69.5 US cents today. That's up from 69.1 cents in mid-January, but down from more than 74 cents a year ago. If U.S. President Donald Trump imposes steep U.S. levies on Canadian goods, it would probably push the economy into a severe recession. Currency forecaster Christian Lawrence at Rabobank reckons the loonie could slide to 62.5 cents, approaching its historic low set in 2002. Meanwhile, lower interest rates depress the currency, and the Bank of Canada is expected to cut borrowing costs again tomorrow. The Canadian dollar traded at 69.46 US cents today, down just over 1/10 cent. West Texas Intermediate oil was at $73.77 US a barrel, up 60 cents. Western Canadian Select oil, by our latest fix, was at $58.89, down $1.75. The TSX Composite ended at 25,419.45, up just over 130 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
And the slump in the value of the Canadian dollar compared to its U.S. counterpart is taking a toll on travel. It comes at a time when so many people like to escape to sunny destinations. CTV's Janice Golding reports.
When the temperatures drop this low, many of us dream of the sunny south. But with the value of the Canadian dollar dipping, traveling to places like Florida doesn't seem quite as appealing.
Because the dollar is just too expensive.
With the dollar hovering around 70 cents American, traveling to the U.S. is becoming less attractive to many.
Not a chance. Politics number one, and the higher dollar.
I have to go to the U.S. anyway, but it's really expensive, and it makes you try not to spend money when you're there.
Economics professor Peter Morrow from the University of Toronto says he thinks the tumbling dollar will have quite a large impact on travel to the U.S.
It'll cause some people to probably put off travel plans, and it'll cause others to do fewer things in the United States once they're there.
According to travel agency company Flight Centre, Canadians' desire to travel hasn't dropped, but
we have definitely seen some changes in terms of where Canadians are traveling, but not a huge, massive material shift.
Chad Andre, Executive Vice President of Flight Centre Canada, says more and more Canadians are looking at traveling farther afield.
About going to places like Portugal, where even though it's the euro, which we don't have a strong basis, it's certainly the travel dollar goes further in destination, and even places like Japan. Alternatively, we've actually seen some strength in the Canadian dollar versus the Japanese yen.
And when traveling to sunny climes like Mexico, which are still influenced by the American dollar, some are staying off resort in local hotels, for example, to get more bang for their buck. A buck that Professor Morrow says won't be rebounding anytime soon.
We might see it, the Canadian dollar get a little bit stronger if tariffs become a little less likely, but I don't see us swinging back to, say, parity or 1.2.
So if you're still dreaming of a getaway, you may want to think about going a little farther away than you're used to for your holiday.
I haven't made any decisions on that right now.
But you're not going to travel to the U.S.?
As of the moment, no.
Janice Golding, CTV News.
There will be no strike by CN Signals and communication workers. The railway has reached a tentative deal with about 750 employees across Canada. They were ready to hit the picket lines today if an agreement was not reached, but 95% voted in favor of the 4-year deal that must still be ratified. Details have not been disclosed. The union says it was pushing for higher wages and better work-life balance.
To sports, the Toronto Raptors take a 4-game winning streak into their next game tomorrow night at Washington.
Just a bundle of injuries has derailed their season. Oh! Pirtle finds RJ as Barrett gets behind the D.
Toronto defeated the visiting New Orleans Pelicans 113-104 last night. Jakob Poeltl and Scotty Barnes both had 21 points. It is the Raptors' first 4-game winning streak in almost 2 years.
Walked down low in front, they score! Sarah Nurse!
Meanwhile, the Toronto Scepters will look to escape the PWHL basement tonight when they visit Minnesota. The Frost is tied for first in the 6-team circuit. The Scepters are 1 point behind the 5th place Boston Fleet.
The Canadian Women's Curling Championship is coming to Mississauga for the first time. The 2026 Scotties Tournament of Hearts will be played at the Paramount Fine Food Centre Sportsplex. St. Catharines hosted the championship in 2017.
Well, some TV shows are ripe for parody, and when a campy supernatural drama starring a group of kids set in the 80s became a worldwide hit, it was only a matter of time.
Now, Stranger Things, or should we say Stranger Sings, the parody musical has landed on a Toronto stage. CTV's Andrea Case has the story.
If you've seen the show Stranger Things, you know things do go wrong.
So, yes, I'm crazy.
First airing in 2016, Stranger Things was a global hit for Netflix. The 5th and final season will air this year.
I say, come and have some fun in the upside-down world.
Joan Mansfield's son, Zach, brought it and the stage musical parody to her attention.
I didn't really watch the Netflix series, and in actual fact, you can come and not have seen the series. You get it. It's funny.
Once cast, the show was rehearsed in just 13 days at the Randolph Theatre on Bathurst, south of Bloor, and was chosen because of its intimacy and the ability to have a 90-show run. Stranger Things started in the UK, crossed the pond to New York, where it won 7 Off-Broadway awards, including Best New Musical. But bringing the show to Toronto, well, that was years in the making.
Over 2 years via Zoom meetings and all kinds of neat things and talking, they decided that, yeah, why not give us the rights for the premiere.
Coincidentally, Brockville's Rebecca Rodley attended theater school in the very same building she's now performing in.
The show, it's a very loving parody of the TV show. That's something that's really nice about it is parody, it is fun. There's so many moments where you're laughing, but there are also moments of sensitive emotions.
She plays Joan Byers, a mother with mental health issues and a son who's gone missing.
I also play her son, Will. So it's it's a very fun, like characters to play within one show. And Will is missing for quite a bit of the show.
I may be a nerd and allergic to ants. One time I talked to a girl and wet my pants.
Set in Indiana in the 1980s, Mansfield says the music and fashion will be familiar, and that's part of the draw. Stranger Things, the musical parody, is on stage now and runs until April 26th. Andrea Case, CTV News.
And still ahead on CTV News, showcasing sustainability, an interactive and immersive experience is inspiring visitors to protect the planet.
Our relationship with the planet is the focus of a unique and interactive installation in Toronto.
It combines art and technology to spark discussions about creating a more sustainable future. CTV's Jessica Smith has this inside look.
Did you know? Using augmented reality to create a real-world experience.
Depends on one incredible little insect.
Arcadia Earth is an interactive installation combining art and technology you can touch, see, and smell, with a focus on teaching people how to live more sustainably.
And what we've really learned and noticed is that people want to do more, but they're not sure what to do.
Using your phone or an iPad provided by the exhibit, you can bring the world around you to life.
One of the rooms that we were in, there's the floor and the walls are sensitive to touch, and people are learning and things are reacting to wherever they are.
With each tangible piece of art made from reused and recycled items that were once garbage, people can physically interact with what they're learning about. The installation has already made its way through Saudi Arabia, Las Vegas, and New York, landing in its permanent home in Canada in downtown Toronto last year, after Arcadia Earth president Craig Perlmutter went through the experience himself.
I just felt like there's a place for it in Canada, and I thought it would resonate really well with Canadians. And it was really important to find the perfect location downtown, not just for the Toronto and GTA base, but also for tourists.
With a focus on education, Perlmutter says the hope is that people leave feeling inspired.
We want people to leave just with one thing that they're going to do differently in their daily routine.
With the idea that changes, big and small, can all help the planet.
Heading into the Family Day long weekend, Arcadia Earth is hosting Family Fun Fest from the 14th through to the 17th with lots of activations, including live animals, all with the goal of teaching people how to live more sustainably. Jessica Smith, CTV News, Toronto.
Okay, that's one heck of a chair. That looks cool. The landscape this evening is snow.
It is. Just looking at that live shot again, I think the skaters are enjoying it, but if you have some driving to do tonight, you might not like the weather so much. Here's one more look at the satellite and radar. We've got this swath of snow. It should be pretty fast moving around the GTA. Next couple of hours, it'll be out of here. Waking up tomorrow morning, maybe an additional burst of flurries. The temperature is going to be mild to start, and then it's going to fall as we make our way through the afternoon to about -6 degrees. So temperature seesaw continues, mild Thursday, Friday, cold to start the weekend. And then we could get into some mixed precipitation on Sunday with the temperature back up. But look at those overnight lows for Monday and Tuesday of next week. Natalie and Michelle.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's it for us, but Omar Sachedina has you covered tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Almy with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a wonderful